We're going to go to the Premier League schedule. Kay Murray is joining us right now. Sorry,
it's all right,
you're good? Are you all right?
Before.
I want to hit myself for that. But Kay, great to have you.
Oh, it's great to be here. I'm sorry, guys. Like, full disclosure, I had some technological issues this morning. I am the default Stevie Nicol when he's not here. I'm getting old. I always seem to need some update on my computer, which is making the loudest noise behind me. So thanks so much for your patience. I did get to listen to some of that conversation. It was really interesting to hear. But obviously, the Premier League is back this weekend. We're very much looking forward to it. I'm going to give Janusz a minute just to catch his breath, because obviously he had a lot to say there about those young players. Because we are talking about the Premier League, and because we are going to see Man City back in action after those back-to-back losses, Dalen, I'm really interested to know what's going on with the title odds right now.
It is quite interesting. City's number is now down to minus 135. And for those of you who don't bet, it means you have to bet $135 just to win 100. Everybody else is at plus money. So you get more than even money. Arsenal's closest, then Liverpool, and so on and so forth. The thing about City that's fascinating is after that preseason, they were minus 125 was the lowest I saw it. Because I'm an Arsenal fan, I didn't put my money where my mouth is. I was like, I'm not betting at City at this point. But when I would talk on different podcasts and shows, I would tell people it may not get this low again. And we saw it it get as blown up as minus 250 as they started to roll off consecutive wins. But now it's back down to minus 135. So if you are a betting person, to me, this is the time you may get your best price as they sit, third place behind Arsenal and behind Tottenham. That I don't think Tottenham has a staying power. Arsenal there, of course, I want to believe they can, coming off that great win. Thank you, Nathan Ake, for having your face shaped a certain way to allow that ball to ricochet off your grill and into the goal. That said, if you like to bet, I think City is still in great play right now in terms of the winner for the title. And I think you're probably not going to see this number that low for that long. Yes, granted, obviously, week to week, these games are kind of spread out, so you don't have to jump right away. But I wouldn't be surprised if we're back to minus 175, even minus 200 if they get back to first place as we get to around late November, early December.
Do they get back to winning ways this weekend then, Janusz?
Manchester City.
Yes.
They have Brighton, right?
Brighton. Yes. Who had a bit of a weird run. But obviously he has a lot of admiration, Pep Guardiola, for Brighton.
Yes, he does. And, it's an interesting time because of what happened before the break. It's also, I think it's Old Trafford on the horizon after that. There's a Champions League in between as well. So those are two telling games. And they're not going to be easy, that's for sure. We'll see what kind of Brighton we get. Is it going to be the one against Liverpool, or is it going to be the one against Villa? But obviously this is a team that will play a little bit. So I think at the very least, Manchester City are going to be happy at home to get the Zerbi and a Brighton team that's not going to be, sitting with 10, 11 players in their own penalty area. So I think that's a bonus for them. I think the biggest bonus, of course, is going to be Rodri being back in the lineup as well, because we see how much they miss him. And that's another story with them. So I think they will. But there's a little bit of blood in the water, I think. And, Arsenal getting over the hump that was Manchester City and inability to beat them for such a long time in the Premier League. It's very, very important. Arsenal has announced themselves that just like last season, and even more so, they're there for the fight. I think so is Liverpool. So the margin for error for Manchester City is a little bit less, but still knowing what they are capable of doing in the second half of the season, knowing the fact that De Bruyne is going to be back, they're still favorites for me. But I'm going to be keeping a closer eye on Manchester City than I have before. I'm sure everybody else as well.
Yeah, it's interesting, Dalen, obviously bringing up the biggest challenges right now. And obviously you've got a keen eye on Arsenal every single week. Are they still the biggest challengers, the biggest threat to Manchester City's title?
I think so. I mean, that's what I bet preseason was them to finish top two. And at the time they were plus 165 to do that, assuming that they would, yes, hopefully win and be the winner. If not, finish in second. Liverpool's going to threaten that. Obviously, I think Liverpool's been good as they've kind of hit their stride recently. We know they have the pieces, they have the mentality, the coaches, the manager, and a fortress in Anfield. It's really hard to play at. So I have no doubt it's going to be a two-horse race, I think, for that second spot. I am cautiously optimistic. And last year it took me till about January to believe that Arsenal could do it. And then, of course, my heart was broken anyway. I think you have to, this win is one thing, but being able to continually string these together and weather some of these injuries. What's up with Saka? Will Martinelli be back to full health? You've got other issues within the team in terms of depth. And when you get in the mix of the Champions League, which they weren't in last year, adds a different element to that. Obviously, they lost alone just in their last Champions League match. That group is not that tough, but obviously that doesn't matter. There's an experience factor they don't have in the Champions League. They'll continue to have to obviously put out your best squad and perform in that competition, and then do it again at the weekend in the Premier League. And obviously we know how stacked the fixtures get through through December. So I think they have the staying power, but in terms of dollars and cents, I still think City is the favorite, rightfully so, as I said. But Liverpool and them, I think, are going to be battle all the way through. Spurs is not going to go quietly into the good night. I don't think they have the longevity, but they can beat anybody and also maybe lose to anybody if they've pulled some rabbits out of the hat this year. But we'll see. They have a lot of talent and capability as well, as do some other teams. But I do think you're looking at Liverpool and Arsenal battling for that second spot.
Why are you smiling, Janusz?
Yeah, because, it's Spurs. I know, I mean, we're asking for a lot. And I think even on the last show, I said that, Spurs are probably not there. And I still believe it. But, momentum is a funny thing. And I'm looking at their schedule and I'm looking at, they're going to be staying in London, a lot of London derbies. And I'm not saying that's great, but it's Fulham home, Palace away, Chelsea home, the next few games, Wolves away, Villa home, and then comes City. I can't remember where that game was. I forgot to write it down. But anyway, you look at the next 5 games, this is an undefeated team that's capable of winning all those games. And, if they were to do that somehow and maybe not lose, maybe somewhere a draw, because obviously, can happen. I think that we're going to have to look at Spurs differently. And at the very least, we may have to throw him in that bag of 2 that we have so far in terms of Arsenal and Liverpool. And I didn't think that ahead of it until I looked at that schedule. I think all the goodwill that's going towards the way they play, some of the new players are fitting in seamlessly right away. And of course, the figure of Ange Postecoglou. The Terraces are happy, not only because of the results, but the way they play. They play expensive. They're not afraid of anybody. So I think it's maybe, look, those games didn't happen, but the schedule is such that I think, maybe we shouldn't dismiss Spurs at this stage just yet.
We won't, but the odds makers are right, Dalen.
They are. I think in terms of getting in the top 2, yes, but the top 4 race, and to your point, Janusz, it's going to get more crowded. Newcastle, they weathered an early storm. They've looked really good in Champions League and in domestic form. Obviously, Villa's trying to compete for that. Brighton, we've already touched on. And when you look at the odds right now, Spurs are the favorites to get that top 4 spot at +110. Newcastle's behind them at +150. Brighton at +300. Then United and Chelsea are further back, and rightfully so. They deserve that spot. But I think you're going to continue to see that field narrow, and that top 4 race is going to be great. And that's going to the pressure at that top 3 teams we're talking about. I'm not willing to put Spurs in there. I do it's hard for an Arsenal fan to hate this Spurs group. They're just different. I like the way they play. I like Ange and his antics and what he says and how he coaches the team. So it's hard to hate the team. I'm not willing to think that they can hang in that top 3, but the pressure on that top 3 and then that last spot for 4th is going to be just massive throughout the course of the entire season. And who copes with that pressure, who has some experience to deal with that, is going to be huge. That's obviously why I still tip City. But it's going to be fascinating.
I only mentioned that because of the rethink, because Kay always asked me about my top 4, and I omitted Spurs from top 4. I'm still, as you can tell that looking at the schedule, I think they're going to have some staying power. I'm still not sure that at this moment I'm saying Spurs are top 4. I think Newcastle, in my estimation, is moving on up a little bit. That win against PSG goes a long way. Their schedule is not formidable in the Premier League, although they do have Champions League, which is important. They've proven that they can play in it, Milan and PSG, but there's Dortmund back to back. So that's not going to be easy. Never mind the results, but just, thrown in between. And I think they're playing Man United at Old Trafford in the League Cup as well in the near future as well. So that's why that 4th spot is I'm changing it week by week, which by the way, that's why we're doing this.
A final thoughts, Dalen, because I know we've got to let you go, haven't we?
Yeah, I got to go pick up my daughter. So, I got to go. But I do think that that the schedule piece of this is huge. That's why I didn't think Newcastle was going to get in the top 4 preseason. I thought that would be really a challenge in their first year to be doing both competitions at a high level. So I didn't pick them for the top 4. Brighton is going to be, they're in the Europa League situation. Spurs not playing in anything else, similar to Arsenal last year, helps you focus your squad and your mentality and your team just on this single competition, which is the most difficult competition in the world. But that really helps their squad. So in terms of the odds right now, I'm not laying down the money on Spurs. I think you're going to get a better price. I think as the weeks tick on, you might get Spurs at +120, 150, especially if Newcastle surges to get that top 4. If you're a believer, hold your money right now.